Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, and I'm going to be talking about Legion Season 3, Episode 1. It is simply called Chapter 20. So, full spoilers for the episode, and it is worth mentioning these Legion reviews are sponsored by one of our patrons. Cindy Palacios is the sponsor of Legion, and partly why it's happening. So, no, you'll notice Connor's not here. Connor opted out. We've got a very busy period, and I still wanted to give Legion a try this season and see what it was doing. It's an 8-episode season. I'm sure I said full spoilers already, but just in case, full spoilers for episode 1 here. So I was curious what they were going to do with Legion, because Season 2's ending did not leave me with a great taste in my mouth. Season 2 had some high points, but Season 2 also had some low points. It felt kind of bloated and a little bit self-indulgent. They extended the episode order from 10 to 11. So the first thing, upon noticing that this is only an 8-episode season, unless they extend it later like they did last time, means that I'm hoping that it's more of a tighter show. Because Season 1 was 8, right? If I remember correctly, and Season 1 was very good. So that would be my hope. And I'm happy to say that I did quite like this first episode. I think this first episode focused largely on a new character. And we focus on this character named Switch, or she comes to be known as Switch later in the episode. And it's this character who she's this teenager, she's going to class, she's got a very disconnected relationship with her father. Her father, has a TV at the breakfast table so he can talk to her and make some small talk for like a few seconds, and that's kind of all the interaction she has with him. He makes robots apparently, which might connect to Basket Head Man, if I remember. But there's all these little things. She's going through her day, and she's listening to a self-help book about time travel, about lessons in time travel, and it comes across as a self-help thing, but it is actually giving her these weird tips, and it becomes clear as we watch her that she is a time traveler. She's a mutant who can time travel. She makes kind of like portal doors and then jumps through them and goes back through time. But basically the idea is that David, who we don't see for a long time in this episode, we're a good 30 minutes into this episode maybe, before we see David, but she's getting all these subliminal messages through news broadcasts, through like signs on post boards and things like that. Saying beware the basket man, follow this bus, find the pregnant virgin, all these little things, and she ends up going down this rabbit hole, and it gets to like the point where we have this great Legion imagery as often as like, it got to the point where she does follow this bus, she goes into this room, and it ends up being like this infinite white room with all these coat racks or all these clothes racks like around her that all keep moving around, and there's like a woman at a desk who looks like the receptionist, but she keeps moving, and it's almost a game of hide and seek for a portion of the episode. And then when she does finally like get through and like sees more people, and she goes to the receptionist who holds up like just cards with like text on them, she asks to see Salmon based on her clues, and everyone in there breaks into a song and dances around her, and she ends up in a cult, again through sort of timey-wimey magic-y, location changing, but she goes through like a tunnel that goes through like, it goes from building to building in the sky, and you see her going up through this glass tunnel which goes sort of diagonally through an office building. You see her like crawling past like a desk, and everyone in the office building doesn't see her there. Like no one notices her. Everyone's like just going about their business, which I guess you could read into the idea that all this mutant activity is going on and everyone's oblivious because it's easy to hide if you've got mental powers or whatever. But it made for a really interesting visual, if nothing else. And we meet Lenny's like the head of the cult. David's the head of the cult. Lenny's kind of running it though. And we see her, time travel. She's told she's going to have to wait, and it ends up being like a 10-hour wait or something like that. But she speeds time up, and it's so Lenny comes in and she's like, "Hey, I hope the wait wasn't too bad." And she's like, "Yeah, it was fine." And Lenny's like, "Prove your ability," and she's like, "No, I'll prove it to him." So she's taken to a room, and there's David, and David wants a time traveler. He wants Switch to help him travel through time to fix things. She guesses it's a girl, implying that it's to do with fixing things with Sid. But yeah, we see David, it's not long after this where Division 3 show up and start like taking people out, and we get this great sequence where David his arm is cut off by Kerry with a katana, and then he's shot in the back by Sid, and he's dead. And it's just because Switch can go back in time and warn him that this doesn't happen. And we get another version of it. We see Farouk is still working with Division 3 as it was kind of like setting up last season, and he's helping them find David, and we see again that he gets killed by Sid. Although this time, I knew it was going to reset time again because he actually disintegrates Kerry, and I'm like, we're not losing Kerry this easily. Come on, Kerry can't die like that. Which is worth mentioning. David's like going through the second time. When Switch goes back and warns him, and he thinks, okay, we'll go out of this room, but I can take them on in the hall. He's just disintegrating Division 3 soldiers left and right and turn them to dust with no regard of human life. So as much as David might have a noble goal in going back in time, he is completely just throwing his weight around with his power. He's acting like he thinks he's God. So it's definitely hard to sympathize with him right now, although it's very interesting that we're following Switch, who does want to be on his side, because she makes the conscious choice to go back and save him. And when she's asked, because after the second time it fails, she tries to travel back again. And at one point, like her audiobook, her self-help audiobook, says you can't travel too far back or you might wake up the demon. And sure enough, she tries to go further back, and she ends up encountering the Shadow King. She encounters Farouk, who understands that she's traveling through time. Now, this is not a Shadow King. This is not a Farouk who knows what's happened in the future. This is just a Farouk who understands that she's a time traveler and starts asking her. And he understands that, okay, you've undone things. He wants you for something, kind of thing. And she has this great escape from this because we've seen Farouk have these conversations in the astral plane or whatever before. She just picks up, there's like a tea tray in front of her, there's like a pot of tea and stuff on the little table, and she just picks up the tray, puts her like portal, she draws it on the edges of the tray, and then picks the tray up and puts it over her head, and that then she goes through the portal and the tray falls to the ground. So it has this really cool visual effect of her doing this. And this is like 2/3 into the episode, and it's at this point where we shift over to, we sort of follow Farouk back to sort of where he goes, and he comes back. He's in Division 3. We think it's Division 3, and we find out that they've got like a giant ship, this ridiculously pulpy. It feels like the sort of thing that you'd see in like an old cartoon, or even like something. I never saw Master and Commander, but I'm getting, it's got a very kind of steampunky, pulpy feel to it. But they've got this giant ship, and we see, Clark's with someone now. We see they've built a robot body for Ptonomy, who's got a mustache because it matches the vermilion. I did laugh a lot though, because Kerry wants food, and Carrie's like, no, after I've tested his reflexes. So she just punches him and immediately knocks him out, and she goes, they're slow, let's get food. So that was pretty funny. So the show still got its sense of humor, which is nice, and I think one of the big benefits of this episode is how it focuses on this new character, and I think that's smart, because the ending of season 2 did this thing for me where it made me kind of dislike a lot of the characters a little bit, where I didn't really understand the decisions that were being made. I didn't like David running away. I didn't like that a lot of the other main cast of characters specifically felt this way about David. It felt like everyone was jumping the gun a little bit. Whereas, so starting season 3 with this new character who's completely, neutral, right, and seems likable, seems innocent. She seems likable enough so far. But having everything through her eyes, where she's discovering things for the first time, it gives us someone to latch on to who I want to buy into, the way she feels, the way she believes in things around her. And I think having that conduit for us as the audience, especially if you are feeling murky about the other characters right now, or at least a lot of them, this helps. It gives us someone else to latch onto. And I think that was important for me in this. But then you also had in the time travel elements of the looping back, and then Clark's all, we'll just kill the time traveler as well, because Farouk warns him that he's got a time traveler, and they show up just like they did before. And I laughed out loud actually. The mutant who named her Switch, and gave her outfit, and the cult, if you want to call it He's out. This happens the first time as well. The first time the Division 3 are pulling up and they're sneaking up on the building. He's outside, like, drinking. He's got this blue flower that he puts like a little drop of this liquid from the blue flower into his coffee or whatever, and it gives him this kind of, like, drug effect where his tattoos kind of like flare up and he looks like he's getting high. But he's sitting there drinking that, and I laughed the first time this happened where they sneak up on him, because this giant, I can only just refer to it as a candy cane. This giant long candy cane kind of sneaks up alongside him and then hooks him. And that's really funny. But I laughed the last time it happened, though, here towards the end of the episode, when they're coming in after there's been 2 previous time loops, where when they pull him away, his coffee cup, like, spins like a cartoon. Like, it stays in the air and spins like an old cartoon. And I thought that was pretty funny. So I'm I'm on board with that. But then there's a big noise, Sid and everyone's coming towards them. They've got headbands on, so David can't sense their mental, like, patterns as they're approaching and kind of things. They come towards the building, and David has just moved the entire building. And that's how we end the episode. I really like the touch of when, Sid kneels down, it finally comes up at the very end of the episode, FX presents, in association with Marvel, Legion. We get the title of the episode, the show even, at the end of the episode. And it, Legion's always done a good job of feeling kind of obviously offbeat, but also very cinematic. And this ending kind of goes along with that. And it sets up some of the core new things for season 3, which is the time traveler and Switch, and what that does to the rules of the show. It is still very weird and quirky, and I enjoyed the quirkiness in this episode, and I'm glad I did, because there was definitely self-indulgent things in last season, and I'm glad that this is a tighter 8-episode season, and that hopefully that means that the stories themselves will be tighter, much like season 1. That is definitely my hope going forward into this season. As for, like, them working with Farouk, like, where do we go with this? Does David redeem himself? Like, is his plan to undo everything? Is to undo everything? Not just undo it, but like so that he makes himself better. Like, he doesn't want to go off the deep end like he has, kind of thing. And there's references to, he tells Switch about the Shadow King, being inside him for 33 years, and he tells her, various other things. And there's certain characters we didn't get to meet or see again this episode immediately, but so far so good. And I'm not, like, I feel like I've gone through this episode's plot quite quickly, because I feel like it's actually quite straightforward once it got going. But I'm happy about that. Like, I'm glad that it wasn't like this super dense thing. Like, there's a lot of little touches that are nice. Because we spend so much time with Switch, or Jai-Yi, her original name is, before she gets to the cult, before she meets David. There's just this extended period, which is why I think it's so good to focus on this new character, that they actually spend time with the new character, and we get a sense of who she is. And sure, I think some viewers might find it frustrating that we spend so much time with this new person and we don't understand the context of how she relates to anything in the plot, from the show so far. But I am, like, okay with it. I love when shows take the time to really to explore and introduce a new character. And I think you get enough of her life, and the idea of her loneliness, and the idea of her not knowing, like, what she wants to be, but, like, using her powers, trying to understand them, her relationship with her father. Like, all these things make her sympathetic, so that when she makes the choice later in the episode to actually try and help David, it feels like, okay, even if I'm still skeptical about David, like, I buy into her wanting to help him, and that makes, and maybe by the end she'll regret that, and maybe we'll be rooting for her to get away from David at some point. But it adds some sympathy and empathy in a place where it might not have been there, given where David and co ended up last season. It's almost like this really unhappy civil war where David and, like, Division 3 are fighting now, and I'm not really on either one's side. And that can be troubling for a show where there's no one who I can look at and go, like, I support this side of the argument, like, 100%. And not that can't be great as well, that you can have, like, shades of grey where both parties have got good points and bad points. It's not like that. It's not like a good argument in that sense on a story. It's more like, it's not just that I disagree with what either side are trying to do. It's that I'm actually kind of mad at both sides for letting it get to this point instead of enjoying the descent to it, which I think is the main failing at the end of season 2, is that I never really bought into the events that led to this situation. It felt rushed, so I found myself not really caring about the split, and therefore not really rooting for them to reconcile, or for one side to be the hero and the other side the villain, or anything like that. Switch offers this new perspective, and it feels fresh, and that's what makes it work. One thing I want to mention about Switch as well is when she's talking to Farouk, she talks to him about because he says, why are you helping him? Why can't we have a different arrangement? Maybe you can help us instead. And she says, David's a person or a human. I can't remember the exact word she used, but she said, you're a robot. And that's an interesting thing, because we hear that our dad makes robots, and that there's a room full of robots in our apartment, and like they have, like, some of them are life size, some of them are small and toys. But so I think the theme of robots, like what's the difference between a person and a robot, and humanity is probably going to play a big role this season. And certainly the way she says that, like maybe from David, she actually senses regret and emotion, and senses that, for all of his faults, he actually does want to achieve something that she can understand and appreciate. Whereas Farouk, on the other hand, she kind of sees him not just going through the motions, but just doing what's expected of him. And not questioning why he wants to do things, or something like that. Like I get that she sees a different in them, and it'd be interesting to see her interact with other characters. Like, how does she interact with Sid, or with Carrie and Kerry? Like, how does she see these people? How does she feel about Vermillion? That's intriguing to me. Since she does seem to have kind of a robot, I won't quite say phobia, but a bias. She has a bias against robots. And not that Vermillion are exactly robots, are they? I guess they are. I guess they kind of are. But no, it's interesting. So no, I'm intrigued. Like, I'm feeling quite positive after this episode. I think it was very tight. It was very focused. I think it went in quite quick, and I'm glad that it did focus so much on the new character. I think it gave it a breath of fresh air, and even though I like a lot of the characters, but like I say, I was in a bit of a murky place after last season, so it's good. And of course, it had the style as it has done before, but again, it didn't feel like it was being super self-indulgent like a good chunk of last season did. Season 2 had a lot of low moments because of just dragging out some of the art house things that Holly or whoever wanted to try, and this episode feels a bit more confident so far, and dare I say restrained. So I'll see if that holds up with episode 2, but we'll find out next time. So by all means, let me know what you think of episode 1 of season 3 in the comments below. Bring up stuff that I didn't talk about in the episode if I missed stuff that you think's important. Let me get me on Twitter at mail_fuzz for channel updates, or me personally on Twitter at Wooble89. You can support the channel and the show and everything we do here over at patreon.com/mailfuzztv. Like the sponsor of this series of reviews, these Legion reviews, which is Cindy Palacios. Go over and you can sponsor something too, but you can join up for just $1 per month and get some bonuses and extras, and get a nice warm fuzzy feeling in your stomach for keeping the shows alive. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?